Today, we will tell you about a man who comes to the realization that his entire family has been making fun of him for the past 22 years. There is a man named Jim Reynolds. I am currently 56 years old. I'm 5 feet 8 inches and in decent shape. I have been married for 22 years to someone who I thought was my life and soul partner. Her name is Kelly. She is 45, blonde, with blue eyes, 5 feet 2 inches, and built for lovemaking. When we were alone together, I would make love to her whenever we were together. Even though there were times when she didn't taste as good as she normally does, I still enjoyed making her happy. In the 8 years that I served in the Special Forces after graduating from high school, I gained extensive knowledge regarding explosives. After that, I went to school for engineering for a total of 6 years before launching my own business, which has since developed into a construction company that is worth multiple millions of dollars. The number of years I have served in the military is not widely known. One of the reasons I don't talk about it is because I had to go through counseling for a period of 4 years in order to get rid of my demons. Prior to entering the military, I held a pilot's license for a period of time. Despite my best efforts, Kelly never trusted me enough to let me take her for rides. My feelings for Kelly began to develop the moment I laid eyes on her. After 2 years had passed, we finally tied the knot. Her maiden name is Moore, and she is a descendant of Richard Moore, who was a passenger on the Mayflower. She comes from a wealthy family. As if I were nothing more than a servant, Kelly's entire family looked down on me and treated me with contempt. I never failed to spend as much money as I could on her. There is a 4-car garage in the enormous house that I purchased for her in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She was compelled to own a BMW. I should say that she had 2 children, John, who is now 21 years old, and Anne, who is 19 years old, both of whom are currently attending college. Each of them received a brand new BMW from me. I own a GMC pickup truck with 4-wheel drive that is 10 years old. When I was around 6 years old, they began to treat me poorly, and I eventually discovered the reason for this. They pay no attention to what I have to say and proceed with pretty much whatever they choose to do. Despite this, they do pay attention to Kelly, who is their mother. Around 8 years ago, I hired John. At the time, I believed that he was my closest friend. Apparently, the children adore him. My wife Kelly inadvertently left her email open approximately 1 year ago. I made the decision to read it because I was bored. Why did I start reading all of her emails? I have no idea why I started doing that. Whatever it was that she was writing about, I could not believe it. She stated that she has had a strong aversion to me ever since the moment she first encountered me, and that her entire family shares the same sentiments regarding me. As I discovered, the children are not mine, rather, they are the children of John, who was my former best friend. A little over 6 years ago, they were informed. Even before I hired him, I had no idea that he was familiar with Kelly. My son, Rick, and John, who used to be my best friend, are the ones who provide me with a good laugh because they are standing right in front of me. A prenuptial agreement was something that my father-in-law wanted me to sign before I married Kelly, and I did so. When the couple has been married for 25 years, it will expire in 2.5 years. An infidelity clause is included in it, which states that if either of us cheats on the other, the cheater will be left with nothing. When I was in the military, I developed a friendship with a man named Kevin. Someone he knows is an expert in the field of eavesdropping on other people. Paul is the name of the individual. He set it up in such a way that whenever Kelly sends an email, it is also sent to a private account that I now personally possess. A copy of each email that my children send to me is also sent to me. It is now possible for me to hear their phone calls because my entire house has been wired and set up in such a way that I also have video of what is going on. Kevin is the only person in my family who could save us from certain death. He talked me out of killing them and asked me what I could do to my family that would hurt them the most, take their money, credit, family name, and pride, and bring shame upon them in public. He talked me out of killing them based on his question. Every single one of John and Anne's friends is aware of the fact that my wife and the children have been manipulating me. They make jokes about me and laugh at me at the same time. They are fully aware of the prenuptial agreement as well as the affair. My best friend John is going to take over, and they can't wait for him to come in and take over. There is a video of my father-in-law talking about me, and they are discussing how they're going to make it appear and sound as though I got the money for my business from him. They intend to promote John to the position of CEO of my company. As a result of the fact that they have been planning this for years, they have made him apply for a job with me, and he has been acting as if he were my best friend. My former close friends from the military are the only people I am certain I can put my complete faith in. I am overjoyed despite the fact that I have not lost touch with them. Paul is now working for my company as a computer consultant, which I have hired. Additionally, he has wired my company so that I am aware of who is on my side and who is not on my side. Consequently, I had approximately 1.5 years to make preparations for a divorce. For the entirety of that time, I was required to act like a fool. I had stopped making love to her. Instead, I went through the motions of thinking about how I had squandered 22.5 years on her. The more I thought about how she had treated me, the more animosity I felt toward her, and the more I wanted to hurt her. Only when I was absolutely certain that she had not been with John did I touch her. In order to conduct business, I would send him out of town. It was never clear to her. In the past, I am aware that I had gotten sloppy seconds and that I had consumed John's leftovers. However, those incidents are now in the past from my perspective. It was necessary for me to continue to act as though I had no idea what had been going on. After all, I needed to give the impression that John was still my closest friend. To exact my revenge, I would humiliate her in public places and make her feel ashamed. I would take measures to ensure that her friends come across us. I arranged for DNA testing to be carried out in order to demonstrate that our children are not mine but rather John's. In the event that they divorced, they intended for John to take over the business management. It was their intention to humiliate me by taking me to the cleaners and humiliating me there. A business had a private meeting with me in order to buy me out. Despite the fact that the individual who was buying me out had been a rival, I had always known that he was trustworthy. I had the intention of selling my business at a low price. I gave the individual who was buying me out an explanation as to why. Including both his and my attorneys, he stated that we are the only ones who are aware of the situation at this time. The law firm that I had hired for this matter was also averse to my father-in-law. In addition to that, they were aware that this was one of the reasons why I hired them. The law firm advised me to open a private bank account and a private phone account. They also suggested that I open a private phone account. In lieu of purchasing brand new automobiles, they suggested that I persuade Kelly and the children to lease their vehicles instead. They would be able to purchase a brand new automobile each year. Even better, I would not have to purchase brand new automobiles, which would put me in a much better financial position. Everyone agreed that it was a fantastic solution. I started packing my belongings in a stealthy manner and putting them in a storage shed that I had rented. A lot of people would laugh at me, either directly in my face or behind my back. I suggested to Kelly that we should begin filing our taxes independently and that she should put the house in her name alone for the purposes of taxation. Because of this, we were required to obtain a new mortgage in her name alone. She was able to take the house more easily in the divorce, which was something that her entire family thought was a fantastic idea. Additionally, in order to prevent my credit from being ruined, my new law firm recommended that I do that. She desired to make a number of amendments to the house, including the addition of an in-ground pool. Regardless of what she desired, I gave it to her. However, she was required to obtain a second mortgage on the house, despite my encouragement. Due to the fact that the house was now transferred solely into her name, it is only natural that the loans would also need to be in her name. She would use half of the money to make the changes she desired, and the other half would be transferred into my personal account without anyone noticing. I continued to pay all of the bills. In the event that I passed away, I changed all of my insurance beneficiaries to donate to charitable organizations. The sale of my business went unnoticed by almost everyone. My responsibility was to ensure that the new owners would retain all of the employees, with the exception of John and his associates. My departure was prepared for within a year, and I had everything ready to go. I proposed that I take my entire family, including my in-laws and John, who is no longer my best friend, on a trip to Europe that would last for 2 weeks. Even though I am aware that they were making fun of me behind my back, it was successful for me. After all, Kelly was the one who was paying for it. The one who was laughing was me. I was able to purchase 150 acres of land in Alaska without anyone being aware of it. There is no other way to get there besides by airplane. My family did not show any concern or awareness regarding the fact that I still held a pilot's license. A shelter for my plane and a cabin that was off-grid and built on stilts were both things that I had planned out. What I did was hire a company to construct it for me. I desired for it to be suitable for moving in. That was going to take a little bit longer than I had anticipated, so in addition to that, I purchased a house that had a large garage that was designed to look like a barn. Fairbanks is where I would call home. There was nothing fancy about it, it was just a simple house where I could keep the motorhome and have a place to stay whenever I wanted to go on road trips. A friend who served in the military purchased a brand new motorhome and registered it in his name. Additionally, he had a strong dislike for my in-laws. Even though he had made an effort to tell me, love is blind. In exchange for him doing that for me, I donated $5,000 to him, in addition to money for the motorhome. In spite of the fact that he did not want the money, I made him and my other friends accept it as payment for their assistance. Reading Kelly's emails led them to believe that I was the most naive and weak person. In addition to the utilities, I stopped making payments on the house, their cars, and all of their insurance policies. Again, it was Kelly's credit that was going to be ruined, not mine, because all of them were in her name. I purchased a purchase order. All of the bills were mailed to the box that was created in Kelly's name. When Kelly and her family saw that I was taking care of all of their bills with my money, they thought I was being so stupid. When the divorce is finalized, her credit will be ruined, not mine. I will not be affected. There will be no alimony payments made because I will not be working. Because I transferred all of the money to an offshore account, they won't be able to discover how much I charged for the sale of my company. It appeared as though I had been taken over by the new owners of the company. I intended to vanish right before the trip was scheduled to begin. I explained that I was dealing with a crisis at work and that I would be meeting with them at a later time. It appeared as though they did not care and were relieved that I was not accompanying them on their trip. Before they left, I made certain that Kelly would remember me the night before they left. I made every effort to have sexual relations with her. At first, it appeared that she was enjoying it. Aside from that, I had my first and last experience with anal sex with her. For that, she was extremely angry with me, and she would be in pain for a few days afterward. What a shame, John. Although he denied having sexual relations with me, he had been having sex with her and her ass for years. I returned to the house as soon as they took off for Europe and gathered everything that I desired to take with me. I did not close the door to the house. For the purpose of obtaining all of the surveillance equipment that he had at my residence, my friend Paul came over. For the process of moving my belongings to Alaska, I paid a moving company in cash. There was not much that I was taking with me, such as clothing, tools, or fishing equipment. I had a few firearms that I stored in a gun safe, some of them were from my time spent serving in the military. Up until the time that I arrived in Alaska, I had those items shipped and stored away. There was no furniture left behind. In order to ensure that they would not be aware of my destination, I made sure to leave no paperwork or anything that even mentioned Alaska. Due to the fact that my son was never interested in going fishing or hunting with me, he was unaware of the locations that I visited during my travels. I chose not to close my previous phone account because I wanted Kelly to remain unaware of my plan during this time. In approximately 1 month after I had left, I would put an end to it. When I left my old phone at the office, I left it with an elderly friend. For a period of 1 month, he was permitted to call anyone he desired, but he was not to answer the phone if it was my wife. After that, I went to the residence of my husband's parents. In addition, I was in possession of the keys to their residence. I unlocked it, turned on all of the lights, and then logged into the laptop that I claimed to be my son. A college website was informed by me that there was a kegger party that would last for an entire week at their residence. Considering that they were always careful with their finances, it is not surprising that they liked John more than they liked me. During the party, their home, automobiles, and boat would all be destroyed. The following step was for me to visit the bank and close all of my accounts, as well as cancel all of my credit cards. I had spent $50,000 from the joint account that my wife and I had. A vehicle dealer purchased my truck from me. Following a period of 3 days, I departed for Alaska without informing anyone of my intended destination. The emails that my wife sent me allowed me to stay informed about what was going on. No one called to inquire about my whereabouts, not even my wife, my children, my in-laws, or my former best friend. They were having a wonderful time under the impression that I was paying for everything, but in reality, Kelly was the one who was footing the bill. I used only cash to pay for everything I encountered while traveling across the country, and I took my time to see all of the points of interest. Initially, I drove to Bellingham, Washington, where I boarded a ferry to Valdez, Alaska. After that, I drove all the way up to Fairbanks. They did not require a passport. By the time I arrived in Washington, Kelly and her family had just returned from their trip to Europe, where they had witnessed the destruction of their family's homes and other properties. They continued to be unaware that I was the one who had set them up. In point of fact, they continued to be unaware that I had left. People were more concerned about their homes than they were about me. The authorities, not my so-called family, were the ones who initially inquired about my whereabouts. On that Sunday, which was the day after they had returned to the United States, they began to figure out what was going on. For the purpose of handling my divorce, I had provided my attorney with a written power of attorney. It was my intention to keep them in the dark about my whereabouts, but I assured them that I would check in with them in 2 weeks. On Monday morning, Kelly received the divorce papers that she had been served for adultery. I had the intention of filing a lawsuit against John for alienation of affection. However, the state of Massachusetts does not permit such a lawsuit. I suppose many state politicians are being sued. According to the agreement I made with the new owners of the company, poor John and his friends were all fired from their jobs. It's a shame that all of his belongings have been taken away. At this point, Kelly's debt was greater than the amount of money she had in the bank. She was the target of all of the creditors. In addition to the fact that their automobiles had been repossessed, the power and water had been turned off, the property taxes were due, and both of their mortgages were unpaid. The fact that her parents' house had been completely destroyed meant that she and her 2 spoiled and rotten children would have no choice but to move in with her parents in a hotel. This meant that her parents had to rent cars for all of them. Just thinking about all of the difficulties they were experiencing made me feel terrible. It was necessary for John to move in with them as well because his property was also destroyed. In order to rent a car for him, he had to beg her parents to do so as well. All of them had sold their BMWs and replaced them with inexpensive box forts. To locate me, Kelly and her family enlisted the assistance of a few private investigators. It was a poor move on the part of Kelly's attorneys to attempt to delay the divorce proceedings. Due to the fact that the DNA test and videos of them having sexual encounters were uploaded to the internet, the case became very public. It was an audio recording of how long the affair had been going on, as well as the fact that the entire family was aware that she was having an affair and had encouraged it. Additionally, the entire family had planned to ruin and humiliate me in public, as well as take my company, and they expressed their feelings about the middle-class members. A video and an audio recording were found of her family bribing politicians and public officials, as well as slandering those who were truthful. I had it all uploaded to as many websites as I could find that are interested in displaying that kind of content. In the end, the divorce was allowed to proceed. Due to the fact that he was one of the public officials who had been exposed as having received bribes, the judge who was supposed to hear the case had to withdraw from the proceeding. Despite my efforts to communicate with the children, they chose to ignore me. I flew into Boston 5 years later to finish up some old business that I had been working on. The restaurant that I went to was one that I was aware her family frequented. They didn't even notice that I was there, they just walked right by me. The grey hair on my head has grown out, I have a beard, and I am in much better shape. I requested that my waiter bring a bottle of champagne to this particular table. Their entire family appeared to be 20 years older. After a few minutes, Kelly yelled out, "Oh my God, you son of a bitch," when they all looked at me. After that, they all looked at each other. It was clear that she found me. She revealed my identity to them. I was able to put out John's lights with just one punch when he came running up to me to punch me. Next, his son, who was also my ex-son, came up with the idea that he would get me. I, too, put him down, but I did not put him out. Kelly raced up to me and yelled that I had ruined her family while also calling me a variety of derogatory names. When the police arrived, they placed me under arrest. I was concerned that the police would not allow me to call my attorney, so I asked the waiter to do so on my behalf. However, after reviewing the surveillance tapes, they decided to release me. The video showed me communicating with them in a very even-keeled manner while also sending them the champagne. In addition, it demonstrated that I was only defending myself. Even though the police were friends of my father-in-law, I do not believe that they would have released me if it were not for the fact that my attorney had planned ahead and made certain that they had copies of the surveillance camera tapes when they were released. Kelly called my hotel room and inquired about the possibility of having a conversation with me. It was in the lobby of the hotel that I met her, and I made sure that we were being recorded. I was questioned about the reason I had wronged her and her family. As I looked at her, I couldn't help but be amazed. I explained in a calm manner that I had discovered their plan for me and obtained them before they were able to obtain me. When I told her that I had found out about her long-term affair with John, she was shocked. After that, I inquired as to the reason she had married me if she had such a strong dislike for me. The fact that I had wired the entire house and that I was monitoring her through her email was something that I did not disclose to her. Both her home and her vehicles had been taken away from her. It was also Mike's truck and house that he lost. The entire group was required to move in with her parents. She proceeded to state that it was not a personal matter and that she had initially done it in order to escape her family. She went on to say that it was a lot of fun to make me do all of those things for her, and that they took pleasure in the fact that I obtained sloppy seconds and that I consumed John's cream pies. Upon meeting John, I inquired as to why she did not simply divorce me at that time. At the time, she stated that it was enjoyable, and that by doing so, she would obtain everything. Regarding how things were going for her, I inquired about it. I simply got up and went back to my room without commenting on anything else that was said. The following day, I left and went back to Alaska to enjoy my life in peace, knowing how much I had ruined their lives, their credit, their money, their pride, and of course, their name. I had ruined all of these things. It is a much better option than killing them because they will be forced to constantly think about me. Listener, if you have made it this far, I would appreciate it if you would click the button that says subscribe. This will be of great assistance.